Well, hello. Thanks for coming back to check out another video. So, we are here today sitting down with very naked eyes because I thought it would be a lot of fun to do a palette bingo with all of the Sweet Shop palettes from BH Cosmetics. There are 6 palettes in total. Each one, they're more monochromatic, so like there's a red themed one, a green themed one, a blue themed one. I'm sure you guys are all quite familiar. So we will randomize one shadow from each palette in order to create an eye look. There are 8 shades within each palette. I will open up this first one, the Sugar Cone palette, just to show you. So this whole top row, the first 4 shades are all shimmers, and then the bottom row, the last 4 shades are all matte shadows. So how we will do this is once we randomize a number, we'll count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You get the idea. I am super interested to see how this eye look will turn out. I love all of these palettes, but I've never like mixed some of them together. Like, I wouldn't personally pair the green palette with the red palette because that just gives me Christmas vibes and I'm not really into that. So we'll see how this goes. We'll see what kind of eye look we end up with. But I love palette bingos. I think they're a good way to kind of like get your creative juices flowing. Okay, so I have Pretty Random pulled up on my phone with the minimum number set to 1 and the maximum number set to 8. I did take off prevent rerolls, so we might get the same number, which would be okay because it's 6 different palettes. So the first one we will randomize from is Sugar Cone, which is the more neutral palette. And we get shade 2, which should be a very kind of like lighter shimmer shade. It's the shade called Dipped right here. I'm just going to go through and show you all of the shades from each palette. I will swatch them out on my hand and then we'll look at them together as a color palette once we've randomized all our shades. But yes, 2 would be the first one, so the shade Dipped. Okay, so up next we have Pistachio, which is the green palette, and we get shade 6. So that should be a matte shade. I think it would be the second, 4, 5, yeah, the second matte green shade from within this palette. So it's this shade right here. Really pretty. Not sure how that's going to go with the other shades. I think the green palette is the one that kind of not throws me off. Like, I love the green one and I can see a lot of fun looks with it. And I would pair the green one with maybe like the pinks and things like that, but I don't know if I would like pair this with anything else. So, all right, let's randomize a number for the blue palette, which is Bubblegum. We get 6, so that should also be a matte shade. This would be the shade Bubbles right here, which is our second matte blue shade. All right, so let's do Cotton Candy next, which is like the pinky purple palette, and we get shade 6 again. I promise I am hitting the randomize button, but, you know, shade 6 is just what it wants to be. Oh, I didn't show it to you guys, did I? So it is the shade Sugar Plum right here, which is a really beautiful, like, cool toned purpley shadow. It's kind of like a blue purple, so that actually will play nicely with that matte blue. We only have drawn 1 shimmer so far. All right, Orange Sherbet is up next on deck. So we get shade 5. Finally something different from 6, but it is still a matte shadow. So it would be the first matte shadow within here. It's called Tangerine. It's like a, yeah, it's a tangerine shade. That's a perfect way to describe it. Okay, so last but not least, let's do Cherry on Top. And let's all keep our fingers crossed for a number 1 through 4. That way we have another shimmer eyeshadow. 7. I jinxed us. That is the darkest shade within the palette. It is one of my favorite shades. No, it's not the darkest shade. Excuse me. 8 would be the darkest. Shade 7 is the shade Tart here, which is a matte red shade. Okay, so this is our color palette. Like I said, the only shimmer shadow we got is the like kind of golden shimmer shadow from the Sugar Cone palette. And then we have a bunch of colorful eyeshadows here. And Haley has no idea what to do with this. This is going to take me a minute to ponder and see what I can come up with. Okay, zoomed in, nice and personal. Again, this is the color story. Okay, I think I have a game plan. And I'm not quite sure how this is going to work out, but we are going to do a halo eye. Okay, so in our outer corner, we're going to start with this purple shade and then deepen it up with the blue, right? Okay, and then in the inner part of our halo eye, we're going to do the orange and then deepen it up with the red. Do the gold shimmer shade as our, center shade for the halo eye. And then I guess lower lash line shade is going to be the green. You see what I'm saying? Like, this is what I was getting at. I love the green palette, but if you look at this as like a whole, the green doesn't really like go as well with the other palettes. So like if we took the green palette out, I feel like this color story would be a little bit easier, but that's my best game plan that I can come up with. So I think that's what we're going to do. So like I said, we're going to start out with the Cotton Candy palette, which is our pinky one. And the shadow that we got, like I said, is Sugar Plum right here, this purple shade. So I'm just going to take that on a Glam Light brush. This is the 04 brush from the Michaela collection. Going to put this on here, and we're just going to do this in the outer corner. So I have to remember like where to hold my mirror so that you guys can see what I'm doing. How do you like palette bingos? Have you ever recreated an eye look that somebody did with a palette bingo? Because I love them because, like I said, I feel like they're a great way to kind of get those creative juices flowing. Oh, I kind of messed up. I usually start halo eyes doing the inner part. So we'll see if I can get the shape of this right. But either way, I like palette bingos because they do kind of get the creative juices flowing. However, this is like the risk that you take, especially when you're incorporating in like 6 eyeshadow palettes, is that it might be something way out of the box that you wouldn't actually wear. But my goal with palette bingos is to actually get like a fun eye look that is, wearable. Like something maybe like you wouldn't necessarily go to the grocery store wearing it, but maybe for like a fun moment. You know what I mean? So I think that might look a little bit better, so I do apologize for that. So either way, I like the placement of where we've got the purple shadow. So now we're going to go in with the blue shade, which if I really was going to do this eye look, I would probably take one of these two matte blue shades because they're a lot darker. I think this one, since it is the second matte blue shade in the palette, much like the purple shade from the Cotton Candy, like they're just going to have the same depth, but I do think layered on top of each other, it's smarter to do the purple and then put the blue shade down. So I'm just going to load down my Rephr 14 brush with that shade Bubbles. So let's see how well we can pull this off. The BH formula, at least in these Sweet Shop palettes, does layer quite nicely, and that's typically my experience with a lot of the BH palettes. Sorry, ambulance. Okay, so as I was waiting for the ambulance to go by, I just took the Bubble shade and kind of patted it in. And since they are kind of the same depth, I don't really feel like I need to necessarily blend out this Bubbles shade because I feel like having it over the purple edges really do help to blend it out. So I think I'm really happy with how this looks. I like those paired together, and now we're probably going to ruin it. But what I was saying though, with BH Cosmetics specifically, their formula, I feel like you can layer your shadows on top of each other. There's only been like one palette that comes to mind where I felt like you had to go darkest to lightest, and that was Party in Puerto Rico. Okay, so now we're going to do this inner part of our halo eye. So I'm going to take the Tangerine shade, which was what we got from the Orange Sherbet palette, and I'm going to take this on a B1 brush from Blend Bunny, and we are going to try to do the inner part of our halo eye together. Let's see here if I got my product on the brush the right way. So with my halo eyes, I do like to take and make more of like a diagonal shape rather than like straight up and down. I just feel like that is a prettier eye shape, but I mean, I guess to like the shape of your eyes and what you prefer will really play into that if you will like it or not. So you can just do like the regular like straight up and down halo eye technique. That looks pretty good off of just like those few little swipes. So I think we're going to leave the orange like this, and let me grab the red from Cherry on Top. Okay, so the shade from the Cherry on Top palette that we got is Tart right here. As I'm looking at this, I'm kind of tempted to do an all matte look and make the green shadow our center of the lid shade. I'm not quite sure yet though. It's the only downfall of palette bingos is that I wish you could like live chat to me and let me know like, no Haley, that does not sound like a good idea. So just gonna take the red, try not to cover up the orange shadow. This is the one part of Halo Eyes that I always struggle with, is like trying to make sure that this inner part, one, follows that diagonal, especially since I did it second. I usually do it first. But two, to make sure that the first initial shade isn't necessarily like totally covered up by the darker shade. Okay, so there's that so far. I'm gonna have to think about this center lid shade thing. Okay, I think we are gonna go with the gold shade. I like all matte looks. I'm getting more comfortable with them, but with Halo Eyes, I feel like the funness of it is that that shimmer shade pops so much because it's in the center and it's surrounded by all the mattes. So taking the only shimmer that we got from the Sugarcomb palette, it is the shade Dipped right here. I am going to grab my brush for that. I've already put down my concealer where I wanted it. I just used my Rare Beauty concealer in the shade 140C in case you were curious. Alright, so I loaded that shadow down onto a BH Cosmetics fluffy brush. And we're just going to go right in the center. You know, before covering up the concealer, I kind of had like a little bit of red, white, and blue vibes. I don't know. Okay, so there's that shadow placed down. I feel like the orange and the purple look really nice, but I do just want to try to like blend this red matte shimmer and this red matte shimmer. I want to try to take the red matte and the blue matte and blend them a little bit better into the shimmer shade. I don't know what to do for like an inner corner highlight. I mean, the only shimmer shadow that we got is the dipped shadow, so that's probably what we're going to do. It's a little bit darker than I would personally want for an inner corner highlight, but again, that's the funness of a palette bingo. Okay, so like I said, I'm just like gently dabbing on the edges to get a little bit of a better blend on these eyeshadows here. So there's the blue one. Let me grab my brush for the red one. Okay, the red one. Just gonna try to stamp along the edges, like I said, to get a little bit of a better blend. Sorry, I guess I was basically like just holding my hand in front of my face. All right, so let me grab the green palette so that we can do this lower lash line. Okay, so the green eyeshadow is Guilty Pleasure that comes from this palette. So the second matte shade. It's a really pretty shade. You guys know I love my greens. But unfortunately, I think the greens are going to kind of ruin this. Like, I feel like this look could be saved if you just mirrored what you did as your halo eye on your lower lash line and then had a nice bright inner corner shadow. But here we go. So like I said, I have this loaded up. I'm just going to do like a black eyeliner to go with this as well. And I'm just going to take this green shadow and put it all over my lower lash line, like the whole way. Alright, I kind of accidentally drugged that down way further than I had intended to. So I'm going to go back into the shade Dipped, and I'm just taking this on the fluffy B2 brush from Blend Bunny. And that is going to be our inner corner highlight shade. Right like this, and then all I'm gonna do is put on some black eyeliner and mascara, do my other eye off camera, and then come back and show you guys. Okay, zoomed out, final eye look done. What do we think? I think this was the best I could come up with, obviously, or I wouldn't have done it. It's not terrible. Like I said, I don't think this is something that I would choose to do or choose to put together, but I'm not like unhappy with the way that it looks. I'm not like mad at the way that it looks. You know what I mean? Let me know though down below, what would you have done with this color story if this was your palette bingo? Because I always think that's interesting too, seeing how our brains all work differently to put different things together. So I hope that you enjoyed watching me torture myself as I did this palette bingo featuring all 6 of the BH Cosmetics Sweet Shop palettes. At the end of the day, I had a lot of fun, even though I do say I tortured myself. I really do enjoy these, and I think what I'm going to do is probably pick out like another set of palettes to do a palette bingo with sometime later on in this month. So if you enjoyed this, you know, just keep your eyes peeled. It's probably coming back just with a different set. So yeah, I thank you guys so much for being here and making it till the end. I hope you're having a good day, a good night, or a good whatever, and I will catch you in the next one. Bye.